Hey, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Right School Matters podcast. Listen, we're having a blast talking about various topics in K-12 education, and know that our ultimate goal is simply to provide some helpful information to parents and families as they are making critical decisions about where their kids are going to go to school. There are so many great options out there, and it can be extremely overwhelming. This podcast is sponsored by Family to Family Relocation and Real Estate, your experts with schools and homes, and whose mission really is to provide professional guidance and professional assistance in educating families and parents about their options regarding schools in different areas while searching for a new home. And so, with that said, let's jump in and check out today's conversation. Today?
No, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Great. Awesome. Thanks, Ed, for being here. We really appreciate it. Ed is the head of school at Dominion Christian School, located in Kennesaw, Georgia, here in West Cobb County, just northwest of Atlanta. And Dominion Christian School is a school currently serving kids in grades 6 through 12, so middle and high school. And we are here to talk about this whole idea of Christian education. And so before we jump into that, Ed, I'd love for you to take a minute and just quickly introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about Dominion Christian School.
Okay. Yeah, I'm Ed Morris. This is my fourth year here at Dominion Christian School, serving as the head of school. And it's kind of a new experience for me. My background is public education. I spent 27 years as a high school math teacher and basketball coach. So I retired from that. I use the word retired, right? And took this position over here as the head of school. So a little bit different because I'm used to being in a really big public school environment, 2,500 kids. And we have about 250 students here at Dominion. So a little bit different experience, but it's been a great experience here in the 4 years that I've been here. And like I said, we're a small private Christian school, about 250 students, grades 6 through 12 right now. Looking at the possibility of a lower school, maybe at some point down the road. We're praying about that and seeing what God has in store for us, and trying to go where He wants to lead us.
That's great. That's great, Ed. And I got to scratch my head at your definition of retirement, Ed. You didn't want to take up golf. You chose
to. Hey. So it's like it was funny. I actually officially retired on like June 1 of 2021. And on June 1 of 2021, I walked through the front doors of Dominion Christian School and sat at my desk. So I might have had a 5-minute retirement in there.
Hey, if 5 minutes is all you needed, bless your heart. But hey, and all kidding aside, I know that Dominion Christian School is super excited to have you. And, I live in the community. And so I know a good bit of what's happening over there, and know some families that have come your way in these last few years, and super excited for all the things that you guys are doing for families seeking a good Christian education in the West Cobb area. Lord knows that we could use more of that for sure. And so excited to hear you mention too the possibility of serving lower school kids in the future. Good. It's great to start praying about that, and who knows what the Lord has in store in the future for the Knights, right?
Yeah, for sure.
That's great. Well, let's dive into this topic of Christian education. Christian education is not new. It's been around for a good number of years in the private school world. But I will say that in my experience of having the opportunity to engage with lots of different types of schools over the years, every school is different. And so, while certainly the core focus is the same, where we focus on following Jesus and a belief in our almighty Lord and Savior, and leverage that to provide spiritual growth and opportunity for the students and families that are part of the school, the day-to-day can look very different from school to school. And so I'd love for you to share with our our viewers and our listeners a little bit about what does Christian education look like for the students and families at Dominion Christian School?
Okay. Yeah, our mission statement is basically we equip students to love God and love others through Christ-centered education. That's our mission statement. It's based on Matthew 22. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, and soul, and love your neighbor as yourself. And what we say around here all the time is, love God, love others. When we on Monday mornings, we always meet large group Monday morning for just large group devotion. And we'll typically have a teacher or faculty member just lead about a 10-minute devotion with all the students in our gym. And at the end of that devotion, and we pray or whatever, there'll be oftentimes I'll say love God and the students will say love others back, just as, because we just want that to be part of our daily culture, and we talk a lot about the love others part. Like, what does that look like? What, on a day-to-day basis, what does that look like? Early on, I'll do a chapel service. We have chapel every Wednesday. And early on, I'll lead a chapel early in the school year. And it is based solely on our mission statement of love God, love others. And just getting across to the students, what does that mean? What does that look like, day in and day out? And we talk a lot about, treat others the way you want to be treated. Kids are kids. I don't care where you're at, what school you're at. Kids are kids, and sometimes they don't make the best decisions. And we talk a lot about, just stop for 10 seconds and just think about the decision that you're about to make, and think about, where does that fit in with our mission? Where does that fit in with what you're learning and hearing each and every day? And if you just take some time to pause, you really might make a different decision, or a better decision. And we try to push that into them about just, don't always just jump real quick to do this. Like, really think about what you're doing and where it fits in to our mission of loving God and loving others.
Yeah, good point. And I like that I appreciate you referencing that kids are kids, because they are. And it doesn't matter where they're going to school. What matters is the guidance and instruction they're receiving, the culture in which they have the opportunity to be a part of. Those are the pieces that matter. And so, there's sometimes this myth that, my child's going to a Christian school, so everything's going to be perfect. Well, we know that is far from the truth. And it's our job as the adults to guide them and direct them. And when you have that put together with biblical principles, then in my opinion, we're on the right road with that. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. And you talk about Christian education being important, right? And, like I told you, I'm a public school background guy, right? So, but when you think about just the day-to-day of a student, right? We get to spend 8 hours a day with them here at school. And think about, in that 8 hours, the influence that we get to have on them through Christian education. My kids went through public school. And I mean, they had a lot of people that were great influences on them. There's no doubt, but they also had a lot of influences that, they had to fight against and push against and whatnot. And what I love about Christian education, about, like, we're talking about culture and we're talking about environment, is, they're spending a lot of their day with us, and so when they're spending all that time with us, we're able to provide that biblical perspective. We're able to provide that influence we're talking about. I mean, kids today, they have worldly influences in the palm of their hands 24/7. I mean, just with social media and whatnot. And so for those 8 hours, though, we get face-to-face interaction with them, to have that influence, and they're influenced by people that all have this Christ-minded likeness, that we're all pushing them towards the same goal and the same mission of loving God and loving others, which is what we're trying to trying to ingrain in them each and every day. But we get to see them face to face 8 hours to do that, which is a lot of time when you talk about over 180 days, that you're going to see them in a school year, and 8 hours a day for that. And even for some, it's longer if they're in extracurriculars. It could be longer than 8 hours. So we really take that seriously.
Now, I want to tap into this idea that you spent 27 years in public school. I spent most of my background in education was in public school as well. And I don't want to send the wrong message to parents out there to say that by being in a public school, you're not going to receive great mentoring and great teaching and things of that nature, because the reality is a Christian man serving in public school is the same Christian man who's serving in Christian school. And so while
Absolutely.
there are certainly some rules and regulations about what we are allowed to do, serving in a state-funded public school, as far as, religious activities and things of that nature, from a personality and a character standpoint, all of that is still present, and students still benefit greatly from a Christian coach or teacher that happens to be in the classroom, for Christian families who feel like that's important to them. And so can you share a little bit about, what that looked like for you spending all those years in public school, and how you were able to, help mentor and guide students both in the classroom and on the basketball court?
It really is not a difficult transition for me, because I don't really act any different in, at Dominion than I did when I was a teacher in public education and a coach. And I get a lot of people that are like, well, how did you get away with that? How did you? Well, it wasn't really getting away with it. It's who I was. And, yes, there are some limits on things that you can do. You're right. But I can tell you this, before every basketball game, we stood up, we held hands, and we said the Lord's Prayer. And I coached kids that were, Christians. I coached kids that were Muslims. I coached kids that, that didn't believe in anything. No one ever had a problem with it. No one ever questioned it. I had an assistant coach that, had a Muslim background. He joined right in with us.
Right.
And then at the end of every game, if it was a home game, we went to midcourt and we prayed. And if it was an away game, we went back to the locker room and we prayed. And I never got pushback on that or anything. But I think it was just the kids understood where my heart was, and they knew how I felt about them and how I treated them, which was that's really what was important to them. In the classroom, there was always a Bible sitting right on the corner of my desk. No one ever said anything to me about that. Now, I mean, if the superintendent had walked in my room and said, "Hey, I need you to remove that," I would have been like, "Okay," but and again, I'm not sitting there shaking it at people or shaking it at kids or doing whatever. But the fact that it was there, it was amazing the number of kids that would come up and just mention it or say something about it. And so I think all of my students, although I didn't necessarily, I wasn't standing up there, giving a biblical perspective on my lessons or anything like that. The kids knew where I stood, I think, because of how I acted and how I behaved. And sometimes I would have kids ask me and engage in a conversation about it. And so it really wasn't much of a different transition for me, because it was just the way I carried myself, whether I'm in public school or whether I'm in a Christian school. And you're correct. I worked with a lot of great people that were Christian people that work in public school, and they did the same thing, and they were great to work with, and I enjoyed working, and I miss working with those people. But it really wasn't that, like you said, it wasn't that big of a challenge for me. So
yeah, and I I think certainly within the community that we're in here in the Metro Atlanta area and in the South, has a reputation of being a little bit more conservative, larger Christian base, I guess, if you will, with the demographic of families that live in the area, you're going to run into more and more teachers or administrators in public schools that are believers. And so, but with that said, if I'm the parent of children who are in the public school setting and we're Christians, then, and I know that, there's a lot of Christians at my kids' school, why would I choose to then to even go to a Christian school if I feel like I'm getting, some of that mentorship and guidance here? What would be some of the reasons why I would even want to make that change?
Well, I think for us, it's really more about opportunity. That's kind of a word I guess I've come to use a good bit around here is, it's a smaller environment for one. Rather than being in a larger school, you're in a smaller school. And so you're known really. The teachers know who you are. And really when you go from one grade to the next, even the next teacher that you have, they know who you are just because it's a smaller environment. And for some people, they're like, I don't want them to know who I am. I guess that can work both ways, right? But I think that the thing about it is the teachers and the faculty, they already know a little bit about you, and that helps with the relationship part of it.
Right.
Being smaller helps with that. I loved it when former players or former students would come back and just come back and see me and have a conversation to see how they're doing and check up on them and whatnot. And I think, when you get in a smaller environment like ours, you're known by so many people, you want to come back and you want to talk to, your teachers and people and they want you to come back. And it's all because you formed that relationship with them. And I think you're more able to do that in a smaller environment. And again, academically, there's a lot of great schools academically. So providing a quality education is important.
Sure.
And I think, we have a senior wall in our lobby with all of our seniors' pictures on it. And we put up, like, when they get accepted into a college or university, we put that college or university up there on our wall. And people are really impressed when they walk through our lobby and, they see, our kids, they're getting into Georgia, they're getting into Georgia Tech, they're getting into Auburn and Clemson and Kennesaw and Samford and just, all of the big schools that sometimes are a little more difficult to get into. Our kids are getting into those schools, just like public school kids are getting into those schools as well. And so I think that just speaks to, we're still providing that quality education. But then the other thing that I think I'd point out is just being able to participate in a lot of different things, the opportunity to do that. I know when I was coaching basketball at a big public school, by the time kids really got to 10th grade, they had to decide, am I a basketball player? Am I a football player? Am I a baseball player? Am I in the band? Am I a lacrosse player? Just because there was so much competition with so many students that you couldn't do all of those and excel at them.
Right.
And, like I even know my son who played basketball up until 10th grade, but he was a good tennis player. And he and I sat down and had a discussion. I'm the basketball coach. He wants to play for his dad. And,
Right.
and he's grown up, in the culture of basketball. And he said, Dad, I really want to play varsity tennis as a sophomore. And I said, well, son, I'm going to be straight up honest with you. If that's what you want to do and you're wanting to start varsity tennis, I really don't know if you're going to be able to play varsity basketball. Just because there's the overlap and that time you're going to miss. Now, I'm not saying you won't make the team, son.
Sure.
I'm just saying you're saying that you want to be one of the top guys. And in order to do that, this is probably what you're going to have to do. And he waited until the day of tryouts. And he came and told me, he's like, Dad, I'm not going to try out for basketball.
Yeah.
And I think it broke his heart. it didn't really break my heart because I knew I wanted to support him,
Sure.
but I always think now that I'm at Dominion and I look at what we have here, I'm like, man, he could have played basketball and tennis here, because he wasn't going to be a Division I tennis
Sure.
player or basketball player, whatever. But he could have played both here and
Right.
excelled at both here. And
Right.
so I kind of look at that opportunity that kids have with that. So not that there's anything wrong with, like you say, the public schools and whatever. And yeah, the competition may be a little better at those bigger schools. But um, but if you really want your kids to have an opportunity to do a lot of different things and enjoy that experience, sometimes a smaller environment, you're able to do that.
Yeah, that's critical perspective, I think, for families who are just unsure of what an alternative may be from their local public school.
Mm-hmm.
Whether they haven't done the research or they just aren't connected. That smaller size, I like the way you phrase it, yields opportunity, and it is true. That there's just a little bit more flexibility to do more and have the opportunity. I mean, you could be a rock star baseball player, but just because there's only 45 spots and there's 180 boys coming to try out. I mean, that's just tough versus
It
being in
is.
a smaller pool where there are, 24 spots and, there might be 30 kids coming to try it. I mean, and then, the communication between the band teacher and the baseball coach, it's all easier to manage in a smaller setting. And I don't know that the general public latches on to that difference. And so that's a really important detail for us to share. Ed, I'm looking at the clock here, and time's flying by, and so I want to switch gears real quick.
Okay.
So Dominion Christian School is located in Kennesaw, Georgia, and right on the line of Kennesaw and Marietta, right there in West Cobb. And so for folks who are watching and listening to this podcast who may not be familiar with the West Cobb County area, I'd love to share some insight with them. And so, there's a lot to do. There's a lot of activity within Kennesaw, Marietta, Ackworth, kind of that whole area there. And so as you are a large part of that area, being the head of school at Dominion Christian School and certainly live within the community, tell us what's one of your favorite restaurants that you like to frequent in the area?
Okay. Well, my wife and I, I grew up in this area. My wife grew up in more towards Marietta, but in the area too. And one of the things we love to do is support local businesses. And I don't know, I'm not a big breakfast eater, but for whatever reason, we love to, like, on Saturday morning, to go eat breakfast somewhere. But like Monday through Friday, I might skip out on breakfast, but we love going to Art's Bagels up in Ackworth. That's a great place. And it's kind of funny. Art has moved around in different locations, so we've kind of followed him to every location that he goes to. And but that's a great place. I tell you, we also love to eat at Basecamp. Over near Kennesaw Mountain. Because you can get breakfast there, but you can get lunch, and they've got some good meals. And then my wife, she loves to eat at Reveille Cafe. There's one there on Barrett Parkway, and then there's one up like at the Brookstone area. So, I think, like, if we're kind of going to eat, those are three places really in this area that we choose a lot, that we like to go and visit.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I don't know if you know that Basecamp in the spring right now, I believe he's doing it. Jim Tidwell's the owner over there. He does a Friday night fish fry.
Yes. Yes.
Yep. And
that tastes great. I haven't been, but the last time I was there, which is a few weeks ago, I was there for breakfast, and Jim was like, "You got to come to the fish fry, man. It's great. It's great."
Yeah, it's the real deal. I can't say it's healthy for you, but it certainly tastes good.
Sure.
Well, great. Thank you for sharing that. Ed, any last words for our viewers and listeners about Christian education or anything else that you want to share?
I think a big thing about Christian education, or really just education going forward in general, not just Christian education, is I think a lot of families now are looking for something different, maybe than just the status quo.
Yeah.
Maybe, I went to high school with a lot of people that now their kids are in private education just because they wanted something different for their kids. And I think that families are really wanting choices now. And what's funny is there may be different choices for the kids in your family. That's what
Right.
I see. I see, there may be a family that has one kid in public school and has one kid in private Christian education, and they may have another kid that's in a homeschool hybrid scenario.
Right.
Um, so I think families are looking for what's the best fit for my kid, and not just, oh, every kid fits this one model, but what's best for my child. So I think in looking forward towards education and what's happening in education, I just think that the families are really looking at the choices and what's best for their kid, whether it's public, whether it's private, whether it's Christian, whether it's homeschool, whether it's a hybrid of some sort, and they just want to do what's best for their kid and what the best fit is for them as a family and for their child.
Well said, Ed. Very well said. And school choice has taken a very steep trajectory in the last 4, 5, 6 years,
Mm-hmm.
certainly in the state of Georgia, but a national trend. We're hearing a lot about it from the White House now
Right.
in these last few months. And I think we're going to continue to see that, which is, in my opinion, outstanding news for the general public, for families to
Mm-hmm.
be able to now be able to make choices that don't hit their wallet and pocketbook as hard because they're able to secure funds that are federally or state funded to go with them and follow them to the school that best serves their kids. And it's a great point because there are so many different options and our children are all different.
Mm-hmm.
And so we want to be able to put them in an environment that can help them flourish. It can be challenging for a parent to have kids in 3 different schools, certainly when you think about the logistics of that. But just knowing that those options are out there is exciting. And so I want to say, Ed, thank you so much for joining me on the Right School Matters podcast. It was a blessing to have you on. And I wish you very well for the remainder of the school year. And for those of you who are watching and listening, again, I just want to mention that this podcast is sponsored by Family to Family Relocation and Real Estate. And Ed said it well. You want to find the schools that best fit your kids. And so when relocating to a new area or searching for a new home, you can contact Family to Family Relocation and Real Estate that will help provide an evaluation for your family and your child to figure out exactly what is that best fit program for them in a school location and then help you find a home as well. And so with that, thank you so much for joining us. God bless and have a great day.